Hi, I'm Maren. Welcome back to my channel, Maren Makes It. Today I want to talk a little bit about mental health and the nomadic lifestyle. I was just on a walk earlier and I had some thoughts, and I think it's important to talk about this, and I think this channel is a great place to do that because I have been doing a nomadic lifestyle for the past year and a half. So for those of you guys who don't know, I spent the second half of 2021 traveling. I didn't have an apartment anymore, and I did a giant road trip, 11,000 miles around the western half of the United States with my remote online jobs. And then I've spent the most of 2022 house sitting and kind of jumping around Colorado using house sits as a way to avoid paying rent. So basically I've been nomadic in some way for the past year and a half. And if you want to see some of my house sitting and traveling and nomadic adventures, I've made lots of other videos on my channel. You can check those out and see more of those today, but today we're talking about mental health. I do think that this is maybe a little bit more of a difficult or weird topic to talk about on the internet, but I just really wanted to have an honest conversation about this because I feel like when I tell people that I traveled and everything, they're like, wow, that's amazing. And even now what I'm doing, they're like, whoa, that's so cool. But it definitely does come with challenges. It's not like it's all fun and games. And sometimes the challenges are more difficult to deal with because they're non-traditional or maybe just non-Googleable, or because you feel so alone during them because, you know, other people around you aren't having that same experience or aren't familiar with those difficulties, that don't really know how to help you with certain situations. So I just think this is something important to have a dialogue about, because I mean, ultimately all the adventuring that you're doing, your mental and your physical health has to be intact for you to be able to enjoy all the fun things that you're doing. Like a hike isn't very fun if you are struggling with anxiety and worried about, you know, twisting a foot or a bear or, you know, other animals, or running out of water the whole time, or if your physical health isn't good and your body doesn't feel good. I mean, yeah, it's not very fun to, you know, go for a hike in a cool place under those conditions. Your mental and your physical health really does undermine everything we do, whether that's how you show up for work or how productive you feel you can be or how much fun you're having in a situation. So I think it's just really important to take care of those things as you go. Also, I just want to say one of the worst feelings is to get to something really cool or get a cool opportunity and then realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I know I should be excited about this, or I would be excited about this, but I'm not right now because I am not taking good enough care of myself. And I think the most obvious example of this is like when you're really tired and you're not really able to enjoy something as much, or you end up missing something, or you end up getting sick because you're not taking care of yourself, and then you end up having to miss something that's really fun. But I think that's always a red flag for me, that I need to slow down a little bit when I'm like, oh, I would be really excited about this, but I'm not because I don't feel good in my body or mentally. Okay, that being said, let's pick up with some tips where I left off from last week's video. So, okay, the next tip, pretty sure we're on 6. If we are, I'm gonna be impressed at my ability to not lose count. My 6th tip is gonna be this game that I play with myself, and I call it fact versus opinion. And it's basically for times where you're maybe feeling uncertain or afraid or nervous or anxious going into sort of an unknown situation around traveling or house sitting or whatever your situation is. Because the thing is, your mind can go like a million miles a minute. Like, your imagination is so good at coming up with all these future possible scenarios that could happen. Like, you know, what if somebody breaks into my car? Like, what if, you know, the dog bites me? What if the dog dies while I'm here? There's all these what ifs that just start to come up, and it's just, you know, our mind trying to protect us, to prepare us for those scenarios. But those are the times where we can start to react to where that imagination is going. For example, like if I'm laying in my car trying to fall asleep and I start thinking about like, well, what if somebody breaks in, and what if, you know, they try to hurt me, and what if they have a knife, or what if it's a bear, what if, you know, a mouse goes in my car and, you know, contaminates all my food, and what if I can't call 911, or I call 911 and they get here too late. And then before you know it, your body's like so tense and your breathing's like because you're feeling like that's already happening to you, because your mind is making you think about all those things. And I like to think about this as just, I have a vivid imagination. I can also come up with a million cool things that would happen. Like, well, what if I buy a lottery ticket at a random gas station in the middle of the woods and that happens to be the one where I win? Or what if I meet somebody awesome tomorrow on my hike and we end up getting married? Like, you can make just as many creative stories up that are sort of like positive fantasies as like negative fantasies, but I think our mind tends to go negative because it wants to help us prepare for the possible unknown. But the thing is, like, there's really nothing you can do. Like, I mean, you're already doing the things you need to do to make sure, you know, an animal doesn't get into your food by having a, you know, closable cooler and your food isn't out in the car. Besides that, you can't do more than that. And worrying about it is not going to make the odds of that not happening any more likely. So I kind of like to go with the mantra of if it's out of my hands, it's out of my head. Sometimes though, it feels so real in the moment because you're so worried that you can't even figure out what's, you know, kind of like where the story is, or like how to kind of debunk that for yourself. And so the way that I like to do that is to ask myself the fact versus opinion game. So like, what's the facts versus what's the opinions and the thoughts and the judgments and the sort of imaginative story that we're layering on top of it. So for example, like the facts right now, I'm sitting on a couch. There's a dog sitting next to me. The dog's name's Carlotta. She's a long-haired Chihuahua. Those are all facts. Like, you can't argue with those things. Now, what are like the thoughts or the judgments or the opinions or the things that I can kind of layer on top of the facts, which could be, you know, what if the dog dies while I'm here and I have to tell the owners? I mean, how embarrassing would that be? What if they accuse me of killing her? What if they try to sue me? What if I end up in a years-long legal struggle after that? What if they have a more powerful lawyer than I do and I end up going to jail? What if the house burns down tonight and I lose, you know, they lose all their stuff? What if I can't save the dog? What if the dog bites me and I have to go get stitches and I can't afford the medical bill? What if somebody breaks into the house while I'm here by myself? What would I do? What if the alarm doesn't go off? What if, you know, they steal something valuable and then I'm accused of stealing it as the house sitter? Like, and now I'm starting to be nervous because I'm just like, like looking at the windows, looking at the, you know, door. Did I lock the door when I came in for my walk? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm starting to freak because my mind's already going to that place where it's as if all of those things are actually happening to me, when in reality, the only facts are I'm sitting on a couch in somebody else's house with somebody else's dog. The dog is asleep. Her name's Carlotta. She's 14 years old. You know, these are all facts. But everything else I just came up with, those are, you know, they're all possibilities, but they're possibilities in the future, and the future's unknown. And I don't do what I can to prevent those things, like locking the door or knowing where the fire extinguisher is. But aside from that, there's not that much I can do to prevent those things from actually happening to me. So whenever I start to feel nervous in a situation where I'm just like, wow, you know, like, oh, that person looks suspicious, or, oh, I wonder if, you know, they saw me do this or whatever. Whenever my mind starts to go to come up with all those things and to start to go to that place, I try to just take a few deep breaths. And then I ask myself, okay, what are the facts right now? And what are the things I'm layering on top of those facts? And that really helps me to come back down to reality. And then I just try to remind myself that, like, having a vivid imagination and being able to come up with all these things is a way that my brain is trying to keep my body and me safe, but it's not really helping me right now. It's kind of like when a kid like tries to help in the kitchen and cook, and you know that they're coming from a good place, but they end up making a bigger mess than before they started to help. It's kind of like that's what's happening here. It's like it's coming from a good place, and then whenever I can remember that, it helps me not beat myself up for being like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you thinking all these thoughts? Because that's the next thing where my mind can jump to. So anyway, playing the fact versus opinion, fact versus thought layering game is a really helpful one for me. The last tip that I'm going to say is that I just remind myself that this is temporary. And I say this is temporary because everything is temporary, honestly. So, you know, whether it's a feeling or a situation or honestly our lives, like everything is temporary. So let's say I'm in a house sitting situation and I really don't like something about it. For example, right now, I like to call this the mouse slaughterhouse because I'm finding dead mice in the kitchen every morning when I'm setting out traps. I don't even eat meat, let alone do I like touching dead animals. I like to take care of other people's animals. That's how much I like animals. Me touching dead mice first thing in the morning is like one of my least favorite things, but I just keep reminding myself every morning when I'm like starting to panic and starting to feel angry that this is the situation right now. This is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary. And the same goes with a feeling. So if you're feeling nervous, you know, this is temporary. You're not gonna feel nervous forever. The feeling will pass. It might take a few hours or a day or a week or maybe even longer. But you know, you haven't always felt that level of nervousness in your life. And so you know that it is temporary because feelings are temporary. Even the really good feelings that we try to hold on to are temporary. If you think about it this way, like, have you ever done something really awesome, like achieved something really cool, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so proud of myself. I want to hold on to that feeling of feeling good about myself. But then, you know, what happens like the next morning we wake up, or maybe like the next week? That feeling starts to fade. And so even the good feelings that we want to hold on to, that we try to hold on to, slip away. And so we know that the negative ones will too. So I like to think about feelings like the weather. It's something that by nature, it's temporary, it's constantly changing. And I think what better way to remind ourselves of this than the shot of the sunrise coming over the horizon. This is actually the view that I have behind the camera. So it's from the couch that I'm sitting on right now. But I think this is just such a great reminder that even if you have a beautiful sunny day or a beautiful moment, you cannot hold on to it because it is by nature always changing. No matter how, you know, cold the night when I'm sleeping in my car, or no matter how, you know, annoying the pet or how annoying the mice situation or how, you know, uncomfortable the bed is, because, you know, some beds are just not as comfy as others. I just remind myself this is temporary. Nothing is permanent. Even the things that feel like they are not. Even life, which feels like it's permanent, isn't. If you've ever had like a health scare or lost a family member, you will have learned that lesson in a very personal way. But yeah, just remember that this is temporary, this is not permanent, and that always helps me too when that feeling feels so overwhelming. Like, what do I have to do about it? You don't have to do anything about it because it's going to probably change when your situation changes anyway. Okay, so I thought I was done filming, but I just thought of another thing. I just took off my coat because I was feeling warm enough finally after my walk, but I thought this was an important one to add. So another thing that I find really helpful to remind myself of, along with this is temporary, is that certainty is just an illusion. And so what I mean by that is sometimes I get really overwhelmed by the fact that my life seems so unstable compared to the lives of other people around me. And I'm just like, I just want something. I just want control. I just want something to stay the same. But then I remind myself that certainty is an illusion anyway, because you could, you know, have an illness come and then you lose your job from one day to the next, which did happen to me. You could have, you know, somebody die. You could die. There could be an earthquake and we all get swallowed up. There could be an asteroid that nobody predicts and everything's gone. There's never really such thing as certainty. We can, you know, try to predict what's going to happen. We can make educated guesses as to what might happen based on our past experience. But technically, unless you have a time machine, there's actually no way to know what the future holds. And so certainty really is an illusion. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm in such a safe, you know, apartment complex, you could have your apartment complex broken in tonight, tomorrow. You know, certainty really is an illusion. I guess this is kind of the flip side of saying that everything is temporary. Also, it means that certainty is just an illusion because everything is temporary. I just find that really helpful to remind myself of, because sometimes I get really attached to this thought of like, I just want some kind of certainty in my life. Like, I want more stability. While there is maybe some truth in that, I also have to remind myself that technically nothing is ever for certain. That kind of helps me detach myself from that thought, and so that thought has a little bit less power over me. So anyway, I don't know if this was helpful to you guys. I feel like this is a video that I've been I don't know, like it's sort of been like marinating around in my mind for a while, but I never really had the inspiration to put it into bullet points. Anyways, I just think this was an important topic to make a video on because I don't feel like it's talked about enough, and it is something that I have definitely had to put a lot of work into in order to maintain while so much is changing around me in the last year and a half. Having a nomadic lifestyle is definitely, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so that's why it's so important to take care of your mental health. So I would love to hear from you guys. Are you guys nomadic right now? Are you thinking about being nomadic? Do you just think this is an interesting topic? Why are you watching this video? I'm just curious to what brought you to this channel, what brought you to this video. So let me know in the comments down below. I always love engaging with you guys. It's super fun for me, and it's nice to know that I'm not just talking into an empty room. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, YouTube.